All right, brilliant young minds. It is that time again. It's time for our next video. Or as a matter of fact, this is our first video of the 2024 school year. So give yourself a round of applause. You made it. Our video lesson today is going to be over enzymes, the wonderful, wonderful enzymes. We're going to be looking at what enzymes are, more specifically what they do, and the role they play in our everyday lives. So, hopefully, you have your wonderful sheet that looks like this. You will need this to follow along with me. So, our first stop, we're going to stop here. We already know, or we should know from our brief time in biomolecules, that enzymes are proteins. Now, they are proteins that are often referred to as catalysts. And simply, a catalyst is something that speeds up a chemical reaction. Now, it's very important to note that enzymes do not cause a chemical reaction to happen, they just speed it up, which means without the enzyme present, the chemical reaction would still happen. However, it would take a very, very long time for the reaction to take place. And more likely so, the enzyme would probably die before the reaction actually had time to finish. But that's neither here or there. So we know enzymes are proteins, often referred to as catalysts. They are also very specific. So when we think about enzymes, I always like to use the key, lock and key scenario, right? There's only one key that fits a lock. There's only one type of substrate that fits to a specific enzyme. But after an enzyme is done, or after a reaction is done, an enzyme can be what we call reusable. So it could be used up again and again and again. That's how enzymes work, right? So in a chemical reaction, as you can see from our lovely picture here, we have reactants. These are the things that go into the chemical reaction. And you put all these ingredients together, you put them in the oven, you go through the chemical reaction, and at the end, you get products. Now, what do you need in order for this reaction to happen? If you said energy, you are correct. So you need energy for this reaction to happen. So far we've new kind of terminology. We have reactants, what we start with or what goes into a chemical reaction, products, what we end up with. So let's take a quick detour. We're going to skip the picture and come back to that. We're going to look at how do enzymes actually work. So an enzyme works by attaching to the substrate at the active site and lowering the activation energy, which this can also be simply referred to as energy needed to start the reaction. So enzymes work by attaching to the substrate at the active site and they lower the activation energy or the energy needed to start the reaction. And you're probably like, Mr. Scott, that sounds awesome. I'm so intrigued, but I have no idea what an enzyme looks like or what the active site is or a substrate. Don't worry, I got you back. So, first thing is this Pac-Man looking things. I always refer to enzymes as Pac-Man because that's what it reminds me of, and it helped me learn enzymes. So, here we're going to label our parts. This is the actual enzyme. This nice part here on the edge, you don't have to color. You can if you want to. This is what we refer to as the active site. This is our active site. And then here, parts 1 and 2, we refer to as the actual substrate. So we have the substrate, we have the active site, we have the enzyme. I think of this as the before. Right? Now, we come here. This is the actual chemical reaction. Or also, this is what happens during a chemical reaction. And then afterwards, you have enzyme still here. It's ready to be used again. Ready to be used again. But now we have our products. So they go in substrates, chemical reaction happens, and then we get products. So it's important to note here we can put substrate. We can also say reactants. Same thing. What goes into the chemical reaction, right? Chemical reaction happens. Afterwards, we get the products, and the enzyme is now ready to be used again. And I know so very much you guys love that short time we spent on graphs. And I promise you, we're going to have more graphs this year. And I am a man of my word. So, what does this even look like on a graph? So here we have our X, our Y axis. On the Y axis, we have the energy needed. Down here at the bottom, this is less energy. And then here at the top, more energy. Now I'm going to take my pink pen here. As you can see, that dotted line represents what would happen if what would happen in a chemical reaction without an enzyme. As you can see, the top of that graph or the top of that curve goes a little bit higher, which means we need more energy without an enzyme for that chemical reaction to happen. So without an enzyme, more energy needed, and it actually makes this reaction harder for it to take place. Now it can still happen, but again, it's going to be more of a challenge. And here we can see this solid black line with the enzyme. There's less energy and it's easier. Chemical reaction is easier for it to happen. Notice the huge difference in energy needed with and without an enzyme. And then our last little spot. Now, just like all things, enzymes will sometime not work anymore. Well, what does that mean? What is the definition of that? So, enzymes can do what we call denature. When it denatures, this means they lose their shape and Stop working. They are useless. They are no good. They can't do their job. Get out of here, enzymes. So when an enzyme denatures, they lose their shape and they stop working. They are done. Fun fact, once an enzyme loses its shape, it cannot go back to its original shape. It's done. There's no more. Might as well just get out of here because that enzyme will not be able to do their job. Let's look at a few things that would cause or that would impact positively and negatively impact enzyme activity. Now, these are good things to know. We may explore and investigate a few of these later. Next week, we actually have a lab we're going to do. Aha, lab number 2. But what are the things that impact enzyme activity? First thing is temperature. Second thing is pH levels. Third is what we call salinity or salt contents. Substrate concentration, how much of a substrate is present, can impact. Oh, it'd be nice if I could spell. How much of a substrate will impact enzyme activity. The presence of coenzymes. Coenzymes are a good thing. Think of like co-workers. There are coenzymes. And then the last one, inhibitors. And those are all the things that could possibly impact enzyme activity. Again, this can be positive or negative. I hope you found this video helpful. Whenever this pops up on YouTube, if you're watching it on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe to Bio Talk with Mr. Scott. I've been none other than your gracious host, Mr. Scott, aka Himothy, aka Hemi Butler. You guys have a great day. See you around the halls. Remember, stay above the line.